our first 4 songs on the record are the most important songs on the record. Sweet Vampires is more of like a summed up little like alter ego sort of thing, but it's just like another side of Bleeding Through, you know. It's more or less just like getting something across in more like a way where it's not so straightforward. But as far as Love Lost in a Hail of Gunfire, On Wings of Lead, and Number 7 The Bullet goes, those are songs that, well, I know musically those are the most mature songs that we have on the record. I think they're the songs that stand out a little bit from everything else that we've done. But lyrically, I think those are the songs that I got my point across a little bit, like more on those songs. There's songs that really deal with the mission of like the lyrics to this band, and which is dealing with your emotions. And I've said this before, but bands that really stood out to me were bands that dealt with, I guess, depression and dealing with like heartache and not feeling like you fit in, and sort of giving me something to hold on to where I could, you know, put on the record and not have it judge me and not have it do anything like that. You know, I could come home from like a shitty day and I could listen to that record and be like, you know what, everything's going to be okay, because there are people out there that feel the same way I do, and they're dealing with it, and this is like a glimpse of hope, you know. And so that's something that I wanted to get across with Bleeding Through, and I still want to get across with Bleeding Through, because those are bands that used to help me, and I want to return that for the kids out there that don't have that to hold on to. The lyrics definitely are a negative approach to build into something positive, because it's about finding power within yourself and finding the strength to be angry about something, you know, instead of being a pawn and being weak and taking shots to the face all the time, you know what I mean, and not doing anything about it. It's about standing up against what has been kicking you to the floor for the last couple years of your life, you know. Taking that anger and being like, you know what, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to look at myself in the mirror in the morning and I'm going to say, you know what, today's going to be different, because I'm going to go outside, I'm going to go out to that society, and I'm going to be what I want to be. I'm going to say what I want to say. You know, I'm not going to worry about the way one person, let alone, you know, a whole society, a group of people looks at me.
How I got into Bleeding Through was actually pure luck as far as I'm concerned.
I just started school for like 3 days. Brandon called me in the middle of like my 3rd day of class, and actually got up out of class and left and quit school. Had one practice for like 40 minutes the day we left for tour, and then about 3 weeks into it, they just asked me to be full-time. Been doing it ever since.
I didn't really know how to take it. I said, yeah, of course I will, but he and I felt each other out for about a week as far as how serious he was about me joining the band, how serious I was about moving down there and joining the band. And after we both realized how serious, you know, it was on both sides, I moved down a month later, dropped college, living in Seattle, and came and lived on his couch, joined the band.
It was really difficult for me to get used to their style of the triple picking and metal and stuff. I was used to playing like pop punk and funk and like Chili Peppers stuff, and listening to a lot of rockabilly stuff.
Scott and Brian write most of the riffs, and you know, I write some riffs, and Debo throws some ideas, and Ryan throws some ideas. Normally singers will be kind of just like, okay, we'll write the music and then I'll put lyrics to it, but I want to be there every step of the way, because in my heart, the guitar player comes out of me, and I want to be there and structure things and put my like 2 cents in. So it's definitely a collaborated effort by everybody in the band, but I've been in the band the longest, so I guess it's something that I guess me and Scott kind of have the final word. Orange County definitely is a unique place, I think, to grow up in, because it's the land of the haves and not so much of the extreme have-nots. It's mainly a bunch of people that have been growing up with the silver spoon in their mouth and never really had to fight for anything, never really had to scrap for, you know, for what they had and everything like that. You know, I went to a high school, I went to junior high with a bunch of rich people, and I went to high school with people that rolled up as soon as they turned 16. Brand new, like, you know, Chevy Blazer or whatever car they wanted, and so for the people that had to, you know, that had to fight for what they had, I think they appreciate it more. There's a lot of people that are like reaching out against this, like the social norms, you know, let's go to a football game on Friday, let's go to a party on Saturday. Now they go to shows, and there's a really big scene because there are a lot of people that are, you know, not liking what they see in growing up in Orange County, and I think that's what makes it such a healthy, such a united scene. And the band's so good because they fight for what they get, you know. They scrap to tour, they scrap to do everything, and they drop everything in their life to do it. As far as bands having like an aesthetic and an image and such a scene where there's probably half the kids that are trying to push that away from the scene, you know, like, why do you need to dress the way you do? Why do you need to wear the makeup? Why do you need to play a different style of hardcore? Like, why can't you just do what's real, or quote-unquote real hardcore? When I got into the scene, it wasn't even an issue, but there wasn't any walls or barriers between people. It was always a scene that was built on diversity. It was always like, it didn't matter what you wore. Like, I used to go to shows with like a pink shirt on, and there used to be dudes at Mohawks, and there used to be, you know, skinheads, and everybody was welcome. And it wasn't until like recently, where I think the last couple of years, that kids started getting really like fired up about making it a pure hardcore scene or whatever. But as far as Orange County goes, it's never really been like that. I mean, there's been a few people that have wanted it that way, but Orange County's always had its own thing, you know. As far as like bands like Mean Season, back in the day, they didn't sound like anybody else. They didn't look like anybody else, you know what I mean? They dressed in like, you know, 50s get up, you know, and people would say something about them and everything like that, but it was something that it was cool about like the scene, because every band that came from here had their own thing going on. And I think that's why Orange County stood out so much. When I was in 18 Visions, we would go on tour and we wore tight pants and we had hair going everywhere, and, you know, makeup and different clothes and stuff like that. And people would bash it, but that was our thing, you know. And now, like, we went on tour after that and everybody started looking like us, you know. It's just about the simple fact of outside the walls of the shows, that's the problem, that's the enemy. You know, the suits are the enemy, you know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't bring the war inside and start feuding with each other, and I think that's something that Orange County has really done a really good job at, is keeping the war outside the doors, you know, and accepting everybody's differences. And the fact that there are bands like Atreyu, there are bands like Avenged Sevenfold around, like us, like 18 Visions, Throwdown, all bands that you could put on your wall. I think it's a good thing, because it's just, you know, like I said, it's showing where you're from. Orange County has always been about differences.
Upon joining Bleeding Through, I knew that Bleeding Through was going somewhere, so it's still bizarre. You know, my friends will call me up, hey, I just watched you, you were on an ad, or yeah, I just saw your video, it just came on, and it's still kind of weird.
Hardcore crossing over to the mainstream is something that I never thought would happen about 5 years ago, and I don't know if I would have really been into it a couple years ago, but I see where it's going right now, and there's a lot of people that don't agree with where it's going, don't agree with the videos, don't agree with this, don't agree with that, but I think it's a good thing. I think where hardcore comes across, unlike other music, is the message is there, and it's a necessary message for a lot of people that are struggling, you know, day in, day out, and can't find solace in, I don't want to like bag on anybody, but can't listen to like a Justin Timberlake and be like, you know what, I relate to totally that, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, they need something to relate on.
We have more random kids than hardcore kids now at our shows, which I think is really cool, because the kids that will enjoy it and be respectful to it will stick around, and the kids that don't will just fade out, so it doesn't matter.